So there we go. Here I am with my friend Greg DeMarco, and we're back with another one of the 15 invaluable laws of growth with John Maxwell. And today we're doing the law of curiosity. And maybe you're curious about why my background looks different, because Greg asked me, "Where are you?" And I said, "Yes, I am. I am in a different spot." So there's a long story to it, but it's okay. We're gonna go with this and see how it turns out. So anyway, how are you doing, Greg?
It's all good, my man. It's nice to see you. I haven't seen you in 2 weeks, so got to get my dawn fill for the day.
There you go. I don't know about a dawn fill, but anyway, there you go. So the law of curiosity, how can that, some of these laws, when you think about them, you say, well, curiosity, is that really a law? But then, you think about, I think that, there's some different ways of looking at things. And when you apply the principles to it, I guess, it kind of becomes a law that you improve your success by paying attention to the idea of being curious. But what is curiosity, or what is the law of curiosity to you?
Curiosity killed the cat. That's what it is to me. I think curiosity is when we talk about that, I see it as a critical component in getting what you want in life, in your job, and whatever it is. Because if there's absolutely no curiosity to you, then why would you want to learn anything? Or how could you spur creativity? Or how could you even go forward to want to research anything? The curiosity is where it starts. It promotes problem solving.
Yeah, can you imagine where we'd be if Christopher Columbus wasn't curious about what was beyond the horizon, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. He would have sailed off the earth because it's flat.
No, we're not going there.
Yeah, we're not going there.
Yeah.
But you're right. Where would he be? Where would anybody be if people weren't curious? And I don't know if we talk enough about curiosity, but what I like about John Maxwell's writing and books, he always sort of throws these things in there that I think really need to be taken notice of. And curiosity to me is one of them. And without it, we just won't get to where we want to get in our own lives, career, sales, whatever you would have.
He has a definition of curiosity in the book, and it says becoming a lifelong learner. So that's I think the idea that you're talking about as well is how do you be a lifelong learner? Because if you're not a lifelong learner, you're never going to get past. You're never going to get past yourself, really, are you?
No, I mean, you've got to, this is probably one of the most important things, I think, is that as we grow, or as we go forward in our careers, let's say it's sales and we're selling real estate or whatever it is, both furniture, it doesn't matter. That's one of the most important components of discovering what direction you need to go in, or learning what is the right techniques or the right things to do. That's just all there is to it. That's how we begin. Awareness is part of that. Getting curious is saying to yourself, I wonder what's next, or I wonder what this means. Why does that do that? Why does this happen? You know what I mean? That starts provoking these questions that we need to ask ourselves about what it is we want to do.
So we can cultivate a curious mind. We can cultivate a curious mind. We can cultivate the idea of being a lifelong learner. So how do we do that? Sometimes we need to believe in ourselves. We need to know where those limiting beliefs that come up or pop up. They seem to pop up in every law that we're talking about. So we need to believe that we can counteract those limiting beliefs. We need to believe that you can change.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do, Don, with stop being afraid. Stop being afraid. And I know that's easy to say, but curiosity drives a person to want to learn and understand things about themselves, for example. Becoming more aware of what's going on around them. It sort of leads to these things. And I remember when Here's a story I can share. I remember when I was selling antiques, and I worked in a an antique barn. It was called South Meadow Farms, and what I learned was this: I wasn't very good at it for a lot of reasons. But what happened was I started to really focus in on the person that was selling the most. And I started asking questions. What is it? What's driving you? What is your main concern? What are you trying to do? Is this all about making money? Is it all about the challenge of making money? Is it that you're just trying to, how do you get the number one sales? And by doing that, I slowly learned over that first week what it took to sell and make money and just, take care of people.
That's kind of one of the points I think that John makes in his chapter there is having a beginner's mindset. And that's kind of what you had when you were trying to learn how to sell antiques. You had a beginner mindset. You had to say, okay, how am I going to be able to do this, better? How am I going to learn to sell antiques?
Well, also, Peter, I wanted money because at the time I needed it, but also I needed a job. But for me, it was never about money. I mean, money's important. What motivates me, and this is important too, is understanding what motivates you. For me, it's the challenge. I have to be challenged, and when you get good at something, the money will come. And I got good at it, and it's because I really enjoyed the challenge. And just what you were saying there, it fosters continuous learning anyway. But it's when you're curious, you want to learn how to do it right.
Yeah, I like the quote Peter Drucker in the chapter. He says, "My greatest strength as a consultant is to be ignorant and ask a few questions." So it's kind of the idea too of having a beginner's mindset.
Yeah, I like that quote, and it's true. It's very true.
I guess one of the first things we have to do as having cultivating the curiosity in ourselves is that believe that we can change, right? I mean, you talked about fear, but that there's an idea that we need to believe that we can change, and I think we have to look to get that belief. All you got to do is think about where you were a year ago. I mean, most people I think would have changed, from where they were a year ago. If you haven't, then I don't really want to comment on that. But I think you have to look at it and say, where was I a year ago? Have I grown? Have I changed? What's changed in my life? So change is a natural thing that happens in our life all the time. So when you're curious and believe that you can change, then I think you can be more intentional about how you're going to do that.
Yeah, listen, one of the biggest things that we have a challenge with as human beings is confidence, our self-confidence. And that's where it starts, right? You have to believe in yourself, and you have to get to the point at where you can be confident in what you say, what you do, how you do it. How you get confident, if, for example, in a job, is learning to be better at it every day. That's where the confidence comes from. And then you can start stacking up wins. I'm not saying wins for the award. I'm saying stacking up the successes so you can say, hey, I did a good job today. I helped these people do this. I had someone get into a home of their dream. I helped somebody furnish their living room. I got somebody out on the water, whatever it is. But you have to be able to build that confidence. And that leads to belief, a deep belief in yourself that you can do it. And fear is the biggest block. I mean, it's the fear, it's doubt, but that's all fear. It's fear-based. You got to stop being afraid to do things.
Yeah, and I think why has to become one of your favorite words.
Yeah.
Right. Asking why.
Why do you do it?
Why this? Why that? I went a number of years ago. I had the privilege of traveling to Africa for a while. We were there for about a week. And I recommend if you go there, stay longer than a week because you lose 2 days, both sides of traveling there and traveling back. I mean, that's for us being on the west coast of Canada. But anyway, one of the things that I mean, in Africa was a totally different experience. You go there and you look, everything is different. Everything is different than you have here in North America. And I mean, some of the buildings are the same, I guess, but everything, in the rural areas is very different. And I ask a lot of questions. And the guy that was our guide, the guy that we went there to meet, he's actually from Vancouver as well, but he went to the people that I was with, and he says, "Does that guy always ask so many questions?" So, but you have to ask questions. I mean, I'm just naturally curious myself. I have no problem with the idea of being curious. If I see something, I want to watch, and I want to see how it's done. Like I always joke about. I love to watch people work, not so much because I don't like to work, but I like to watch people work, especially craftsmen, because when you watch how they put something together or how they fix something, or you watch them a tile setter. If you watch a tile setter, setting tile, it's just amazing. You see how they start, how they line everything up, and they get it all to be squared off and everything like that. And you learn. I know in principle how to do a lot of things. Unfortunately, I got 10 thumbs, and I could never reproduce any of what I know. Like, I know how it works, I know how to do it, but I can't. I don't have the skill to be able to do it myself.
Well, listen, it's curiosity fosters this creativity, right? And regardless, we just can't be afraid to not try, or be afraid to try. Sorry, and that's what promotes, I think, problem solving skills. We start to look at things and say, okay, if I can't do this, why can't I do it? What's stopping me from doing it? And then you start discovering little things about yourself. Maybe you have self-doubt. Maybe you don't have enough skills, and I need to learn more skills. Who can teach me? Like when I was in any sales job, no matter what I did in any sales job, the first thing I did, because I'm curious, is ask a lot of questions like, who's the number one people? Who's selling the most? What do they do that I'm not doing? What's going on with this? Why do you do it this way? And lo and behold, after it's always been in any sales job I want, not that I'm Mr. Best Salesman of the Year, but in any sales job, I always racked up to the top 5 within the first 3 months. And the reason is just because I wanted to learn how they were selling, to find out if I can do the same thing.
So one of the ways that you become more curious by spending more time with other curious people. So it's kind of the same thing. You became more successful as a salesperson because you were spending time with people that knew how to sell.
You got it.
Right.
Because I might know how to sell. Here's the thing. I might know how to sell. I might know how to sell things, right? But when I get into a different industry, for example, I have to learn what that industry is all about. I have to understand what their customers' needs are before I can start to really be effective at helping them. So the number one question is, who's the number one people here? Who are the 2 top or 3 top people in the organization? What do they do every day that I need to do to be in the top 5? And It's not even about being in the top 5 for me. It's just, I know that I need to be challenged, and I want to be challenged. And if that brings me to the top 5, great. If that brings me to the highest income level, great.
So it goes with the next point that they say, that John talks about. It says you got to learn something new every day. So you were learning something new every day. And I agree with that 100%. I mean, like, when you're learning something new every day, you're exercising your skills, your learning skills. You're exercising you're building your curiosity. You're exercising something, and by wanting to learn something every day.
That's right. And therein lies the biggest, I think, stumbling block for some people, is because they're not doing that. They get sedentary. Like I remember a couple of jobs where I started in sales, and after the first week, I'm just gung ho, I'm ready to go. when you're waiting for leads to come in, or when there's some off time and you're just sitting around, instead of trying to learn something, you're just sitting there playing on your phone, or you're just gabbing about nothing in particular, instead of
Yeah.
using the time, instead of using that time to grow.
I think sometimes people don't like the idea of learning something new every day because they're afraid of failing. We talked about the fear a little bit earlier, but really it comes down to, what if I'm no good at this? What if I can't learn this? Or they're fearful that they're failing.
Well, it's
But
funny, but wait a second, Todd. You know what's funny about that? That you want to find out right away, because if you can't do it, then you want to move on to something else. You don't want to be there for 3 months or 6 months and realize I can't do this and I don't like doing it, and I've just wasted 6 months of my life.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know?
Well, that goes with the point that John makes is it says partake in the fruit of failure. See failure as a sign of progress. And if you look at it and say, okay, I failed at that. What did you learn from it first? Did you learn that you were no good at it and you should move on? I don't think you should make that judgment right away, though, because lots of times it takes multiple times of trying before you actually become successful at something, right?
Right. I think here, this is always my golden rule of thumb was minimum 3 months, because within 3 months, you're going to have an idea of what works and what doesn't. Right. But by 6 months, you pretty well, for me, has always been by 6 months, I know whether I'm going to make a great impact or not. That's how it works. That's how it always worked for me. But in the end, you're bang on. You've got to be able to gauge yourself well enough to know, are you giving yourself a fair shot, or are you giving up too quickly?
I think it's the next point that John makes in the list is to stop looking for the right answer. There's always more than just one answer. And there's different ways of doing something, because you and I can approach the same project from two totally different points of view. You're going to do it your way, and I'm going to do it my way. That doesn't mean that your way is right and my way is wrong. I think there's very few things. Maybe there's the right way of working on some guy's heart, or putting stents in a heart of a heart attack victim. But
yeah, there's a right way and a wrong way.
Yeah, but in sales, or in lots of things in life, there's not just one way of doing it. Doing something. So recognize that stop looking for the right answer. The right answer. There's just this to say, okay, how am I going to accomplish what I want to accomplish? And I think that's where you start using some of the other laws, the law of your imagination, and just by doing things a different way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot to know for sure, but I think that really the main point for me in this chapter is curiosity is what is the beginning point of us being able to strive further in what it is we're trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah, I really like John's 8th point in the book, where he says, get over yourself.
I like that.
Be like a child again. Like children are they look at something brand new, and it's with a look of wonder. They say, wow, look at that. That's amazing. That's why I think kids idolize their fathers. Because dad can pick me all the way up, right? I mean,
yeah.
And stuff. So that their father is lots of times their first superhero. But just to get over yourself and be like a child again and wonder, I think that's pretty good advice. You're not all that in a bag of, whatever the saying goes. I don't remember that saying totally, but
yeah, no, that's right. No, that's right. And listen, in the end, I think that we want to cultivate, what we're trying to do is cultivate a growth mindset, right? And we want to be able to just encourage ourselves to move forward consistently. And at the same time, we want to be able to be a good role model for those that are in our company, right?
Sure. Yeah. The 9th point that John makes is, he says, get out of the box. Right. Yeah. That's an important thing. Thomas Edison said there ain't no rules around here. We're trying to accomplish something. So I think that's a good way of saying that, get out of the box. I mean, if you want to accomplish something, how are you going to do it? And we always have a saying, or you've probably heard it before, that if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same results.
Yeah.
So that if you want to get different results, you have to start doing something differently. And I think that's where you start talking about getting out of the box. Use your imagination. How are you going to do this a little bit differently? If it's not working for you, is that because you're not suited for it? Maybe not. Maybe you need to get out of the box. Maybe you need to figure out, what is it that I have to do? How am I going to do this differently? How am I going to do this so it matches my personality style? And how am I going to do this so that I actually enjoy what I'm doing? So there's different ways of doing things. And that, the 10th point is John says, enjoy your life. If you're not enjoying, I mean, you've talked about this quite often, and I know it's very true, is if you don't like what you're doing, why do you want to do it?
Yeah, no, exactly. And that is an important point, because I think
sometimes you have to do it, right? Okay, so sometimes you have to do it, but
you still have choices, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right. In the end, why would you stick with something if you don't like it? But sometimes you're right. We have to do things we don't like to do, period. But,
so the law of curiosity, it has a lot to it, like there's a lot of different avenues that you could go down when you're talking about curiosity, but it's important, I think, for us to recognize that being curious is part of our personal growth plan, should be part of our personal growth plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's to me as a starting point. If you're going to do something, you're curious about it. So you have to be able to somehow water that seed. You got to get it going, and you've got to start exploring different things, and it's got to encourage exploration and discovery, right? You have to be able to walk, like you say, get out of the box. You have to be able to explore different areas, and whether they're, I don't know, physical or intellectual or emotional, it doesn't matter. By stepping out of your zone of comfort, we open ourselves up to the possibilities of other things, right? And opportunities, most importantly. That's what we start opening ourselves up to. And it's embracing uncertainty, because let's face it, everybody on the planet is looking for some kind of certainty about something. And maybe that's what we need to do, is start embracing uncertainty so that we can make it familiar.
Get familiar with walking in fear.
Yeah.
Facing the fear.
Because then you start to realize you're not as afraid of it as you thought you were. And it's certainly not as difficult to do as you thought it was going to be. And that's usually why people are fearful and they don't want to try something, is because they think it's going to be difficult. And it's not.
Well, lots of times, I think, ask yourself the question, what's the worst thing that could happen? And if you're honest with yourself, it's probably not really all that bad anyway. But a lot of times,
Yeah.
So, what's the worst thing that could happen to you? Well, somebody's going to laugh at me.
Yeah.
Laugh at yourself. That's where you get over yourself.
Well, yeah, I laugh at myself too much, I think, but it's good in some ways, but other ways you kind of just sitting there like a fool.
Yeah, well, you set yourself up there, but I won't go there. So.
Oh yes.
Anyway.
You're too kind.
Yeah, thank you, Greg, for your time and for your insight into the law of curiosity. And we look forward to seeing you back again here next week, and we'll be talking about the next law. So be sure to like and subscribe. And if you need to contact either Greg or myself, our contact information will be in the remarks. So take care.
Thanks very much, everybody.